Now, for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, we're joined by Kola Lakpini, an international human rights lawyer. Thank you for joining us. Maybe a good place to start is Happy New Year, because you'll just see it the first time this year. But interesting stories this new year. Of course, we're seeing quite a lot of interesting stories, and we thought that these stories perhaps 2025 would have gone with it, but we're back to perhaps the same status quo. But let's start from this day of record. Let's start with the biggest stories there. Nigeria vows to strengthen fight against insecurity as Trump threatens more U.S. strike. One other headline there, would I say, that they say experts urge stronger collaboration to defeat terrorists. Let's take a look at this one, top of the left now, with new MOU, Jersey to return over $9.5 million stolen funds to Nigeria. Nwodo, poverty, unemployment, insecurity enough to host APC in 2027. Perhaps this is where we'll focus now. Rivers Pandev sets up reconciliation committee to avert political crisis. But let's start from this one, Kola. Interesting because Nigeria has now vowed to strengthen fight against insecurity. And perhaps maybe because there's so much threats and intervention coming from the U.S. But some other also disagree that, there will be a renewed effort by the federal government against insecurity before even U.S. strikes. Help us understand this, because some are say this also has put the government on its toes to do more than it should do. Do you think the pressure from Trump is really working as it should?
Of course it is.
Okay.
Because you can see that when Nigeria was redesignated a couple of years ago, when the CPC designation was removed, when we were removed from this CPC designation,
yes,
the killings in northern Nigeria spiked. It was as if Nigeria was given a pat on the back for doing absolutely nothing. So the killings spiked, and we, especially in the Middle Belt region, southern Kaduna, Plateau, and Benue. And that's why the term Christian genocide came about. There are killings in Maiduguri and all that, which we know is due to insurgency, and the higher proportion of people living there are Muslims. And you also see skirmishes coming up in areas like Zamfara, Kebbi, and Niger State, and all that. But particularly what is happening in the Middle Belt is a decimation of Christians, because they are largely a Christian population. And then the people who are attacking them, they are known as Fulani headsmen. Everybody knows they're Fulanis, and I don't know why they keep referring to them as bandits. And when they seize the land, they try to colonize the land and rename it as Fulani settlements or whatever, different names. So it's very obvious. The redesignation of Nigeria by the Trump administration has now allowed the Nigerian government to engage with the U.S., which is what the government has not been doing. It's absolutely mind-boggling how residents will tell the military or the Nigerian authorities that there's going to be an attack tomorrow or next tomorrow. I visited those villages where the attacks happened in, I think it was December 2003, Christmas Day and Boxing Day. And we did a documentary there. We shot a documentary, we interviewed people. It had nothing to do with climate change. So it's very important that the US repositioned its foreign policy, especially regarding Nigeria. It has allowed the government to wake up. At least we're engaging with Washington at the highest level.
So the question of whether Nigeria can realistically defeat insecurity without a regional or international cooperation is not a debate at all.
We could have. Because in context, if you look, this is a mighty Nigerian army. We were in Liberia, we were in Sierra Leone, we were in Somalia. So why is it? We went to Benin Republic just a few weeks ago, and we secured the country. So why can't we secure ourselves? It's very simple. We've been compromised at the highest level. President Goodluck Jonathan himself said that we have Boko Haram in my cabinet. What he did about it or what he didn't do, it's up to him. But he said so. And we read the cables. You remember WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, and the cables being filed by the various governments and sending to their home countries. And the US particularly said we have a Nigerian military, a Nigerian army that is unwilling to engage, pour arms, compromise of information, etc. It was just, we made a mess of the whole thing. So it had to take someone in the mold of, the current POTUS to really wake us up. The interesting thing is that America didn't even have to set boots on the country, in our country. The Tomahawk missiles were launched from the naval ship. So it's about time that we have no choice, really. We have no choice.
I think, of course, this is a time for the government of the day to prove itself that really it's ready to fight out now that we have cooperation or the backing, so will I say, in collaboration with the US. But let's
the moral argument is that if we were threatening to go into Nigeria under the auspices of ECOWAS, and we frowned upon what happened in Mali, etc., Burkina Faso, and we have intervened in other countries before under the auspices of ECOWAS. Why can't
we do it?
No, the argument, the narrative is, why should we be afraid of intervention in our country?
That's right.
We spearheaded interventions in other places. So why are we afraid of intervention? Where's our moral right to say that nobody should intervene? Nigeria is a very strategic and vital country. The instability of this country should be worrisome to everybody in the world. This is the biggest black nation in the world. If anything happens to us, West Africa is gone. Because the outpour of refugees and internally displaced people who would empty into West Africa, there are 35 million to maybe 50 million Yorubas in Western Nigeria. That's bigger than the population of Europe.
This brings us to conclusion that this time the government must maximize this window.
You have to get it right.
Deal with it right. But let's move away from that quickly as we take another story. This one, of course, talked about the Rivers crisis. Of course, the Pandev has set up a reconciliatory committee to avert political crisis. And what is at stake really for Rivers residents if the crisis deepens? That's another big question. But let's look at that same story on the Punch newspaper. If we can pull it up now. Punch has the same story, which talked about the fact that, again, Tinubu wades into Wike Fubara field, president to meet FCT minister, Rivers governor, APC leaders. Another writer that says only prayers can save Fubara from impeachment. That's coming from former governor of Ekiti State, Fayose. But the question is, what is at stake for Rivers resident if this crisis deepens? I mean, don't forget that the governor has defected from PDP to APC. So what is the views about?
So first and foremost, I would disregard what Chief Fayose is talking about.
Yeah, in this prayer. Perhaps it's beyond control. Maybe he's saying that this is beyond...
He's a beneficiary of the Wike largesse.
Okay.
So that explains it. It will speak on Wike's...
in defense,
yes.
you mean?
Yeah.
Speaking in defense of Wike.
You get what I mean. Now, I think Mr. Wike is smarting from the injury that Fubara has inflicted on his political career. You must remember that after daring the PDP for so long, PDP has expelled him. So he cannot approach a PDP gathering or sit down in their midst or wherever. Anybody who entertains him is going to be sanctioned for anti-party activities. And Wike has, Governor Fubara has played a master card, a master stroke, by defecting to APC. And as you remember, someone else said that once you join the APC, all your sins are forgiven. Even people who were being tried for corruption and in the billions, their trial seems to recede. So there might be
probably not the case for Fubara now.
Hang on, hang on. Let me break it down to you.
Because they stay at loggerhead
between
Wike and him.
Hang on.
Yeah.
You remember, just last week or a few days ago, the publicity secretary, the Senator Bashir, I've forgotten his other name. Yes, who fired missiles at Wike and said, keep your mouth out of our party, is none of your business. now that APC, River State has returned to the APC fold, remember they lost it when Amechi was leaving government and Wike took over. Dakoko Peter side lost to Wike in controversial circumstances.
Right.
Now that the governor has done the masterstroke of moving to APC without casting a ballot from anyone, the APC is going to defend the territory. It's now the party, APC as a party against Wike. It's not Fubara anymore. And that's probably why you see Fubara is more confident. And that's why the president has now quickly intervened, quicker than the first time.
Right.
Because there are more stakes. Because that is River State is now his state. It's an APC state. And he needs it for the elections. He needs to win River State, APC. And he needs a governor there. I mean, so the residents of River State cannot afford another crisis. Are we going to declare another state of emergency in River State if things don't go Wike's way? And I hope that at the end of this, I hope that Mr. Wike does not overstep his boundary.
Well, I mean, perhaps maybe he should be getting advice by now, because quite a lot of people that look, this man is now number one as far as
party leadership is concerned in River State.
In River State, so why not leave him alone?
APC party machinery is going to defend Fubara with all they have, and they will be talking to the president and say, "Call your man to order. Let him leave River State."
Perhaps it's a step that political, analysts will call it a smart move for Wike. But I mean,
for Fubara.
I mean, I beg your pardon for Fubara, but interesting days ahead.
Interesting. Well, a week is a long time in politics.
Because Pandef is actually trying to wade in now,
knows what is
setting up a committee to address these issues.
Who knows what we're going to be talking about next week? As I said, a week is a long time in politics. I don't know what's going to happen. Okay. So fingers crossed.
Let's move away from politics now. Interesting story on The Guardian, if you can pull that up. Why Nigeria first policy remains rich in packaging, lean in import. And I think this particular headline, it's quite more of editorial than news, because it's critique Nigeria's economic nationalism narrative, where policies perhaps branded as prioritizing local production, content. And so the question, I mean, what this particular headline is talking about, it's actually the fact that, slogan like Nigeria first, policy, you have recovery and all of that, what a few. It sounds, very interesting on paper, but the question now remains, in terms of implementation, in terms of impact really on the people and the economy, it's another different story.
Let me simplify this for you. Nigeria first is just a very hollow slogan. We cannot say we're putting Nigeria first if our ministers, our governors, and even the president does not use Nigerian universities. We cannot, in Nigerian healthcare centers,
yes.
We cannot say Nigeria first when their children don't go to our schools, our universities, our secondary schools, high schools, primary schools. And that is why education has declined and is appalling, because they don't have any stake. Their children are not there. They don't use our medical. Aisha Buhari, when the daughter fell ill and they went to the State House clinic, do you remember the headlines? Said they don't even have Panadol. And when she was leaving, she tried to build a brand new one. She said world class and everything. Even the president is not using it now. So it shows that there's this interest in Nigeria first. So it's just an empty, a hollow slogan. Until we make it mandatory that people in government cannot go abroad for medical intervention. We must use our hospitals. I mean, can you imagine President Trump saying he's going to get treated in another country? It's not possible. Or the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom saying he's going to Canada or Australia. Or
Nigeria's first
it
policy.
Starts from our leaders.
Buy cars instead of importing cars.
We must make the president. There must be a presidential code to start with, because the fish starts rotting from the head. There must be a presidential code where the appointees of the president must sign up to say they will not travel abroad for medical tourism. They would not send their kids abroad for schooling. They can go on holidays and everything. But if you're a member of government, if you're a member of cabinet or an appointee of the president, or you're in National Assembly, or you're in government, people who the president appointed, by virtue of that, by extension, people who we voted for, because you vote for the president, you vote for the legislatures, then they appoint their auditors as well. So that mandate extends. Everybody who is politically exposed must sit down in this country, fix our schools, fix our hospitals, fix our roads. We can't be saying Nigeria first when all these things are not put in place. And then the next thing, you send your kids abroad. Next thing, the previous president, anytime he had hair, nose, throat infection, he had run to London, packed the presidential jet in London for 6 months. How can we be talking about Nigeria first when we pick packing fees to the airport in the UK for 6 months? Do you know how much it is to pack a private jet for a day? Being a diplomatic
quite a lot
plane, they might give you exemption for like 3 weeks or 5 days if you're attending UN whatever UNGA in New York or whatever. Right. But once it's a very short time limit where you can pack your presidential jet without paying fees. Once it goes on an extended period like 6 months, only God knows how much Nigeria spent in the UK to treat the previous
Quite a lot of thought from you on that particular headline. But let's move away from there quickly. Let's look at Weekend Trust. Perhaps we can pull that up as Weekend Trust talked about drop in food prices. Farmers in dilemma over loans Hajj payment. Perhaps we may not dwell on that much if we can pull up that. But let's head international now. There are international headlines, stories. Let's pull up Financial Times, FT Weekend. Tehran hardens crackdown on protesters working for Trump, biggest regime threat in years as internet blackout caught Iran. Of course, there's much of protest because of the economy that is declining. But let's also pull up Daily Mail now. Interesting story of this one, and I want us to perhaps end on this particular note. This particular shocking loophole lets private clinics legally dole out super strong cannabis on prescription. And of course, this talked about the fact that, why cannabis, of course, is legal for limited medical use, they're seeing that private clinics in the UK are taking advantage of it, and they talked about the fact that it helps in depression, and it helps in controlling anxiety and all of that.
Okay.
Speak to us in this, because this is one product, will I say, contraband that it's not really accepted here in Nigeria, even around Africa. Well, now, it's been really adopted by clinics or private clinics in UK.
Well, remember when, I think it was the last or second to the last presidential elections, when our very good friend Omo Elisha was saying that we should legalize cannabis in Nigeria. We produce one of the best in the forest of Ondo State and Delta and everything. Everyone was making fun of him. In America, the thoughts are split. So in California, for instance, cannabis is legalized, but you have to get them from particular spots, and you might be walking down Hollywood Boulevard or something, and you'll see cannabis shops. It's government taxes, legalized. Then they pay tax. Yeah, you go in there, you do your stuff, you come out. In the UK as well, there have been moves to legalize it, even though it's had some fierce and robust opposition. But physicians and people who have herb shops can prescribe them under what they call medical marijuana. That it helps with anxiety, with depression and everything. And so there you go. Maybe Fela was right after all, years of saying that cannabis was a natural plant and all. The thing now in the UK is that there's a loophole there where the prescriptions, the high dosage, a stronger one is being given out, written out as prescription, because there was a loophole. I suspect that the UK government will move very rapidly to look at it and see, okay, is this super strong version allowed or not, or it's just the normal one that we said and all. But it's not really frowned upon in Holland, for instance. In Netherlands, is legalized, so people recognize that this is a herb, this is a plant, and there are medicinal values from it. When we were doing our first year courses and GST courses, you know, you do all these things that they tell you where all these plants and roots can be used for this. In the science ones, I remember my first year, we had a professor of pharmacy who was lecturing us in GS on all the power and advantage of all these herbs and roots and all that. So maybe...
So in all, we can say there's economic value in cannabis.
Tremendous.
We're not exploring it as enough.
This was what Shura was saying. Tremendous economic value in cannabis. I used to live in school in South Africa, and there was a very important... 30 seconds. There was a case, Garrett Anver Prince versus the Law Society. We were at the Constitutional Court. I observed that trial as a student, my classmates and all. We all went there. And this man... it was a user, it was a cannabis user who had been sanctioned. And then when you want to go to law school, you have to declare your convictions. That's right. And they declared it there that, oh, he had been sanctioned for using cannabis and all. And they were willing to forgive him if he said he was not going to use it again as a solicitor. But he said, I'm a Rastafarian, and I'm going to keep using cannabis. And the long short of it was that there was no, he claimed it on the right to religion, but the government was talking about control. Who do we know is a Rasta? Do all Rastas have dreads and everything? Who do we prescribe this thing to? A long and short story was that the government of South Africa didn't allow it. The Constitutional Court didn't allow it. And Mr. Garrett Anver Prince was never admitted to the Law Society.
Well, I think a good place to leave it. Thank you so much. Kola Lakpene is an international human rights lawyer. Thank you for coming on Daybreak.